Hey everybody, Neil with Tax Sherpa here. Today we're going to be talking about the Corporate Transparency Act and the Beneficial Ownership Information Reporting Requirement, which is quite a mouthful. So this is a new requirement that's placed on companies starting now in January of 2024 going forward. And what we're going to be doing over the next few minutes here is we're going to go over what is the Corporate Transparency Act, what is the Beneficial Ownership Information Report, what is the purpose of this, who has to file, how do I file, when do I file? When do I file updates? And what happens if I don't file? And that last one is an important one. So you're going to want to stay tuned for that. First, what is the Corporate Transparency Act? So this was a piece of legislation. It was started in 2019. It was finally passed in 2021. And basically, it's a bill that requires this reporting. It's fundamentally all it is. And ostensibly, the purpose of the bill is to combat money laundering and to prevent financing of terrorist activities. So that is the face of it. On the other hand, when we get into exactly how this all works, you'll see that none of this is new information. The government or governments in various forms, whether it's state, local, federal, they already have all this information. What we're doing here with the Beneficial Ownership Information Report is we are providing the federal government a centralized repository of all information, and it just makes it easier for law enforcement to find who owns what without having to go after different state secretaries of state or different local municipalities to get information. But fundamentally, what this report is, it lists the company information, name, address, EIN, and then it lists who owns that company ultimately, who's the beneficial owner, and that person's name, social security, and address. And if there's multiple owners, then the multiple ones. So it's a lot like the FBAR requirement in that you have both beneficial owners who actually own stuff, 25% or more, also people who have substantial control. And that could just be like a high up in a company who just has the ability to affect things beyond just whatever their paycheck gives them. And then people who benefit from the financial assets of the company, even if it's not in their name. All of that is to say they're looking for the flow of control of funds through these companies. So very similar to FBAR, it's reported to the same agency as FBAR, which is FinCEN. And we'll get into all that here just immediately, actually. But first, let's look at what the bill actually is. So I'm going to share my screen here. And this is from congress.gov, the Corporate Transparency Act. And you can see here, I think this was the final revision. There might be one slightly updated one, but regardless, Corporate Transparency Act, it was finally passed in 2021, like I said. And this bill generally addresses the disclosure of corporate ownership and prevention of money laundering and the financing of terrorism. This division requires certain new and existing small corporations and LLCs to disclose information about their beneficial owners. A beneficial owner is an individual who, one, exercises substantial control over a corporation or LLC, two, owns 25% or more of the interest in a corporation or LLC, or three, receives substantial economic benefits from the assets of a corporation or LLC. So you might have to file one of these even if you don't own the company, because if you get substantial economic benefit or if you have substantial control over the company, then you'll still have to be on this filing. And that's what the act is. That's what the act created. They created this whole framework, and you can read the whole thing if you want. You can go into all the text. Congress.gov is actually great for finding information about legislation. Finding it in the first place can be difficult, but once you're in there, you can find summary of text, actions, titles, all that kind of stuff. The text is usually what I look at when it comes to tax legislation. But so this whole thing, it's not a tax. It is just an information report. So they just want to know where all the money's going, basically. And even if the money flows are not happening, where's the beneficial, not ownership, but the benefit. So who is receiving the benefit from these companies in the name of anti-money laundering and in the name of preventing financing of terrorism? So you can read through all that if you like. It's very long, but I'm just giving you the highlights here. So what they did was they told FinCEN, which is the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, and they said, okay, create this form and create this reporting system, and it's going to go into effect January 1st, 2024, which is now. All you do, so to file the beneficial ownership information report, you go to fincen.gov, the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. And you can see here at the top of the page here, this big BOI, beneficial ownership information. And maybe in the future they'll move this around, but this icon right here is the same thing. So that you click on that, and that will take you to fincen.gov/BOI. Here's their homepage related to the beneficial ownership information report. There's resources on preparing, there's resources on filing. It's pretty straightforward. I will show you how it all works. Obviously, if you don't feel confident in your ability to file these forms accurately and completely, hire somebody. You can talk to us. We'll be happy to do it for you. But if you follow what I'm doing here, you should be able to file it on your own. Like I said, this kicks in January 1st, 2024, and they had just updated their website, so we got an actual look at the form. So I'm going to walk you through that. But all the report is a list of information, company information, ownership information, and that's kind of it. What is the purpose of the filing? Like we said, money laundering, anti-terrorism purposes. But the part that people have a lot of trouble with this whole concept is that the governments already have this information. When you file a articles of incorporation or articles of organization with a state, you go through the Secretary of State and you list the name and the address and the members or the officers of that company or corporation. The government already has everybody's social security numbers. They're the ones who created the social security numbers. On your last tax return, you tied your social security number to an address. Your driver's license already has your name and address. So all these pieces of information already exist in government systems somewhere, somehow. What FinCEN is doing here with the BOI, the Beneficial Ownership Information Report, is they are creating a singular centralized resource for law enforcement to go after this information. So it'll be much easier for them to find the information rather than having to go to Secretary of State X and Driver's License Department Y. That does certainly represent security risks for everybody else. This is what they're doing. So as far as the purpose goes, it's to make their lives easier, is what it is. As far as who has to file, basically everybody. When I say everybody, every corporation or LLC. So there are exemptions, but those exemptions are very small cases. So if you're a huge company, if you are an exempt organization like a 501c3, if you never filed anything with the Secretary of State, which means you don't have a company, that is an exemption. And there's about, I think there's 20, let's look at over here. Do I qualify for exemption? 3. So if you are a securities reporting issuer, if you're a governmental authority, so they're exempting themselves. If you're a bank, if you're a credit union, if you're a depository institution holding company, if you're a money services business or a broker or dealer, it's securities, a securities exchange or clearing agency, or other Exchange Act registered entity. So all of those are basically what we consider financial institutions. They're exempt. If you're an investment company or investment advisor, a VC, venture capital fund advisor, if you're an insurance company, if you're a state licensed insurance producer, if you're a Commodity Exchange Act registered entity, if you're an accounting firm, if you're a public utility, if you're a financial market utility, if you're a pooled investment vehicle, if you're a tax exempt entity, if you're an entity assisting a tax exempt entity, if you're a large operating company, a subsidiary of certain exempt entities, or if you're an inactive entity, meaning that you're no longer doing business, then you're exempt. But this is a very small fraction of all the companies in the United States. If you have an LLC or corporation, you're probably going to have to file. All right. So that's basically who is essentially everybody who has a company or corporation or has control or substantial influence over a corporation or a company. Because remember that it's not just the 25% owners. Okay, as far as how do I file, there's a fairly simple system. There's actually 2 systems. So one is by PDF and one is by their online system. So you can just click on the link here. You go to boiefiling.fincen.gov and you go file BOIR. That's a beneficial ownership information report. So you can file online or you can do it by PDF and then submit the PDF. Either way works fine, or we're assuming is going to work fine. So we'll find out if that's the case. But the information is the same regardless. I downloaded the PDF and I will show it to you now. So let me change my share here and we will walk through it. There it is. Okay, so this is the PDF. It's very similar to the FBAR. The PDF is even very similar to the FBAR if you've ever filled out one of those. And well, let me see if I can zoom in here to make it bigger. Okay, so there's instructions, then you validate, and then you finalize, save, print, and then you file it. And if you do it on the web, I assume it's going to be pretty much the same, just on a web app instead of on a PDF. So the first section is filing information. Is this an initial report, a corrected prior report, update to a prior report, or a newly exempt entity? And if there was a reporting company, obviously this is the first time anybody's doing this, so that's not going to apply to anybody. But you're going to probably click initial report. because this is everybody's first time. And part one, it goes into the reporting company information. So this is the company that has the beneficial owners. Okay, so what is the name? That's going to go in line 5. You're probably not going to need 3 or 4. I would say none of my audience is a foreign pooled investment vehicle. If you have a DBA, that goes in line 6. Form of identification, whether it's a EIN, SSN, or what have you, it's a little drop down there. And then the tax identification number. So this is where you fill in your EIN. So if it's 46-555-9292, something like that. And then if you're foreign, which again, not going to apply to any of my viewers, you would put that in on line 9. Country, jurisdiction of formation, you click, that's going to be United States for pretty much everybody. And then if you're domestic, you go into lines B, C, or D. State of formation, that's going to be everybody that I've talked to. What state are you incorporated in or organized in? Current U.S. address, you just put in the address. So again, this is all information that's already on tax return. So they're not getting anything new. They're just centralizing. All right. So then if it's an existing reporting company, meaning that it was this company existed prior to January 1st, 2024, you would check that box. If you're January 1st, 2024 or later, you would not check that box. And that gets into when do I file? So if you're an existing company, meaning that you were incorporated 2020 January or December 31st, 2023 or earlier, then you have a year to get in your initial report. So you have until January 1st of 2025 to get in your 2024 report. If you are a new company for 2024, you have 90 days from the date of incorporation in order to submit this. Starting in 2025, January 1st, 2025, if you have a new company starting then, you have 30 days to get in the report. So that's an important timeline to keep in mind. Existing companies, a year. New companies starting 2024, you have 90 days. New companies 2025 and later, 30 days. Okay, so if you have a FinCEN ID, which most people don't, you would put that in, but that's not required. And then company applicant information. This is actually not required if you're an existing reporting company, but for completeness, because all new companies are going to have to fill this out, I'll just go through it. So individual's last name, first name, middle name, suffix, if you want to put those in, date of birth, current address and address type, if it's a business or residential, and form of identification. So you have state issues driver's license, state, local, tribe issued ID, passport, or U.S. passport or foreign passport. And you're going to fill in all the information. So if you have a driver's license, which is going to be the vast majority, you just put in the driver's license ID number and then whatever state that your license is from. And then you have to attach an actual image of the document. So that is fairly aggressive, I would say, because they can validate that information online with their own systems. But again, we're creating a centralized repository here. So this is for the company. So part 1 is the company. Part 2 is who is submitting this information on behalf of the company. And part 3 is the beneficial owners. So if your beneficial owner is a minor child, which is a very rare circumstance, but it could happen, you could put in the parent guardian information, and that would be line 35. And then if the beneficial owner is an exempt entity, then you would click that. But otherwise, you'd put in the full legal name, last name, first name, date of birth, and then the address, and then the identifying document type. And again, just like we did before. Now, you can see here, it says 1 of 1. So this is a beneficial owner is going to be anybody with substantial control, anybody who benefits from the assets, or who has at least 25% ownership of the company. So that could be one person. It could be a bunch of people, probably not more than 6 in most cases. But you would hit these little plus or minus icons to add additional records so you can add additional people to the same filing. So if we add 1 here, now you'll see this change to 1 of 2, or now we went to 2 of 2. And then you can fill out another person's information here. And you can do that for however many people apply. So it keeps going back to 1 of 2. Okay. So however many people it applies to, you got to fill out their name, their address, their date of birth, their social security number. Actually, do they require social security number? Looks like they don't, but they require your driver's license number, and they have your social security number on file anyway. So that's all fine. And then, oh, I see. It just added a page. Okay, so that's how they did it. I thought it was going to be fancier. And then that's it. So then you would save that. attach all the identifying document images, and then you would go back to the web page. And let's go over here, share that. And then you would click this button, Submit BOIR. And then you would fill out your information and then attach the file, agree, I am human, and submit. Let's talk about this compliance reminder right here. The willful failure to report complete beneficial ownership information to FinCEN, the willful failure to update beneficial information provided to FinCEN when previously reported, information changes, we'll come back to that in just a second, or the willful provision of false or fraudulent beneficial ownership information to FinCEN may result in civil or criminal penalties. A person may also be subject to civil or criminal penalties for willfully causing a reporting company to report incomplete or false beneficial ownership information to FinCEN. This is the what happens if I don't file. So what happens if I don't file? There's penalties of $500 a day, plus you could possibly go to jail for 2 years, plus you could possibly be fined up to $10,000 in addition. It's a lot. And that's the stick. There's no carrot. There's just stick with this. So they want these done, and they want them submitted, and they want them submitted on time, which again, 2023 and earlier, you have a year. 2024, you have 90 days. 2025 and forward, you have 30 days. That's when you do your initial filing. If you need to change something, then you have to file an updated filing. So if we go back, then you can see that there is an update. That's 1C. So if the beneficial ownership changes, you buy or sell or bring a new partner, or somebody leaves, or you had a minor child who was exempt from reporting, but then they turned 18, they're no longer exempt, then they have to file. And I believe it's within 30 days of the change. And let me just check that. Let's see, update. There's a whole FAQ here on the FinCEN website that you can check for specific questions. I believe it is 30 days. I'll have to check back on that, but that's what I'm going with for the moment. So that's when you file an update, and you just fill out a whole new report and you submit it. So this is the version 1.0, release date January 1st, 2024. And again, just to sum up, what you got to report is people who own the company, 25% or more, people who have substantial control, and or people who benefit from the assets of the company. And who has to file? Basically, anybody that has a filing with a Secretary of State. So it's an LLC, it's a corporation, it's a LP. Pretty much all those are going to have to file these. And the purpose is, their version is to combat money laundering and to combat financing of terrorism. And my version is just to make their lives easier because they already have all this information in one form or another. Who has to file? Pretty much everybody that owns a company. When sometime, again, I don't, I've been going over this multiple times, but it's anybody who had a company 2023 and earlier who's still active, they have up to January 1st, 2025. If you have a new company for 2024, it's going to be 90 days from the start of that company. And for 2025 going forward, it's going to be 30 days after the start. If there's any changes, you got to file an update. If you don't file, $500 a day civil penalty, possibly 2 years in jail for criminal, and possibly $10,000 fine. That's all. The $10,000 on top of the other stuff. So it's a lot. And this is something that the government is trying to get the word out, but they're not real good. They're not real good at getting this kind of information out. So it's left to people in my business in tax advisory work, where we help clients navigate all the stuff. This has nothing to do with taxes, actually, but it is just something that we have to deal a lot with because a lot of our clients come to us and ask us questions about these kinds of things and need help and guidance. So again, you can do this for free by yourself online, or you can hire somebody to do it for you. You'll have to provide the same information either way. It's going to be effectively name and address of the company, name and address of all the people involved. That's it. So it's not too cumbersome, but it's going to take you some time. And it's just time you could have spent doing anything else in your life. So that is my report here for the Beneficial Ownership Information Report. I hope this was valuable for you. If you have any questions, reach out to us, office@taxsherpa.com. That's the best way to get a hold of us, or you can just book an appointment for a discovery call if you want to go over your individual situation and figure out how we can potentially save you tons of money on your income taxes. And we specialize in helping small business owners, freelancers, solopreneurs, 1099 contractors, and those types of people. If you're in that group, you're part of my tribe because I'm one of you. So We'll see you all in the next one.